Before we dive into today's episode, a quick reminder that early bird tickets for the Heart Centre Business Conference in Noosa in September are closing on the 13th of March. Don't miss out on securing your ticket to this amazing, spectacular, uplifting, connecting, inspiring, and practical business conference with like-hearted entrepreneurs, industry-leading speakers, including the one and only M. Rasciano, and just a beautiful opportunity to step away from your business for a few days to focus on making strategic decisions, getting inspired, getting motivated, and getting clear on exactly where you are headed from here. Go to tashcorbin.com/conference and grab your ticket before early bird closes on the 13th. I hope to see you there. Something that I love about being a business owner is that a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the ideas that we generate end up being quite a co-creation. And in today's episode of the Heart Centre Business Podcast, I would love to share with you some lessons from an event that I ran in January that I feel like were a co-creation of the entire group who participated in the process and really are some powerful insights into how we can create businesses that feel more aligned and also create that sense of progress and momentum that can sometimes feel like no matter how many tasks you tick off the to-do list, it just doesn't feel like it comes. So in today's episode, I'm going to share with you 5 key lessons from Kickstart 2026, which was the event that I ran, that I just feel like I really needed to come and share them out to the broader podcast community. For those who are unaware, Kickstart is an event that I run and have run for the last few Januaries, where we have a week together generating some momentum. And I also run the same process in May. It's called Biz Boost when we do it in May. So it's all about generating momentum and focusing on what are the most important tasks for us as business owners. So that's what we're talking about in today's episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 513, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/513. And because this is day 4 of Tashmas, I also have a fabulous gift for you at the end of today's episode. So let's dive in. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Almost like tickle your brain into engaging and seeing these things as fun and finding the fun and adventure. So the big 5 lessons that came out of Kickstart 2026, as I said at the start of the show, they really feel like a co-creation. I asked a question once the week was up about where people's insights were or what the lessons were that they were carrying forward. And it was so powerful to be able to see what we had focused on being taken and turned into strategic decision-making and action-taking, and then these lessons coming back that I just feel like were really powerful and felt so grounded in lived experience and how people actually transformed in the experience. So the first one was the recognition and finally understanding that if something is not working in your business, it's not you who needs to change. And I've probably said that in 16 different ways throughout the last 2 years, over and over again, even to people who really landed it this time. And I'm very excited that it's starting to really gain momentum and people are really seeing the impact of understanding what that means. Because for far too long, I have watched business owners feel frustrated that they're not getting their podcast out consistently and therefore deciding, I need to change something. I need to change myself. I need to change in being more organized. I need to stop being so deadline driven. I need, right? And what they need is actually an internal change, or people deciding that, they're really struggling to get client notes out to their clients. And then they end up sitting at their desk hating their business and hating themselves because they're behind in doing all their client notes. And the decision on how to solve that problem starts with recognizing and really embodying this belief that the thing that needs to fundamentally change is not me. It's not who I am, because I am the CEO of this business. The business needs to change around me. And when we really get that and stop trying to find tips and strategies and books and self-help programs that help us to change ourselves. I want to be a more disciplined person. I want to have better habits. I want to be a logical thinker. I want to be someone who gets things done well before the deadline, right? All of those things that we make up about ourselves and how it's just a little trait of mine, or it's just a habit. It's not that I'm not changing fundamentally who I am as a person if I become more disciplined. But really, at the end of the day, expecting to change who you are or how you function in the world as the most straightforward way to make something work, to me feels like it's actually not the right way. It's not the most straightforward way. It takes time and energy and effort to embed a new habit or routine or make that personality trait change. It takes self-exploration and mindset work and digging a bunch of things out. To me, it's just easier to reduce the workload. It's easier to change the systems, structures, and people that are around you and helping you and supporting you. Change the supports, change the structure, change the system. And for a lot of people this time around in Kickstart, we saw that when that light bulb happened and they actually decided to spend a week changing the system, structures and supports around them, instead of spending a week finding all the ways they need to change as a human, then the changes were so much more straightforward. The changes were so much more simple. So getting the podcast out every week, it could be as simple as making that a once a month thing, because right now my capacity to create content is really restricted. Or I need to stop being perfectionist about doing it as a video podcast because Amy Poehler with an entire production team does a video podcast and it's very popular, right? There's all of these reasons why people are deciding that if I'm going to do something, I have to do it the very right, perfect way, and I have to do it the way everyone else does it. And if I can't do it the way everyone else does it, I need to change who I am. But instead, you are not what needs to change. And when you recognize that, the system and structural changes may be simpler and more straightforward than you think. And that is what happened. By the end of the week or even the week after, we were seeing people have these breakthroughs of, oh my gosh, if I just get my team to do X, I won't have to do Y. Or if I just go to audio only for the next 6 months, I'll get that momentum happening and I can just move on and stop getting angry at myself for second guessing my video content because I don't like the way I look on camera. And I can address and deal with the I don't like how I look on camera over the longer term. But in the short term, stop putting pressure on myself to be on camera so often. Right? And it was just all of these light bulbs. And so it was such a powerful lesson. I'm so excited and proud of everyone who really embodied and embraced that shift. So lesson number 1, if something isn't working, it's not you who needs to change. Now, lesson number 2, busy doesn't automatically mean productive. And rest is productive time, especially for business owners. And this was huge. People who I have previously seen be absolute workaholics and consistently say things like, yes, I understand taking the afternoon off would be really wonderful and it would be really delightful, but I'd feel better if I worked for the afternoon and got a little bit further ahead with my to-do list. And I saw people like that finally recognize that their belief that tasks being ticked off the list was more important than nourishing and nurturing themselves transformed, and that was tipped on its head. And so being able to see people who were previously workaholics actually experience what it feels like to have proper downtime, to take an afternoon off, and then recognize and witness how much more effective and productive they are the next day, life-changing. It was spectacular to witness. Even we had some stories from people who said, like, I was really upset with myself because I hadn't done my 2 things that I said I was going to do, and it was only 2 things. And in the past, I would have made myself stay up late to finish it off, or I would have made myself get back to my desk early. Instead, I just accepted it will happen. I can sort it later. Like, just those types of stories just kept proliferating. And then it was those very people who, when I asked about lessons, they were sharing it had really landed for them this time around. And sometimes I think we just need to take a leap of faith and see what it feels like to recognize how well things can go and how much of a difference it makes when you really do pay attention to meeting your needs, pay attention to that downtime being a productive use of your time and collecting evidence to support that. So rather than sitting on the couch and watching another episode of that Netflix show, but consistently in your brain going, well, I should be doing that task. I should be doing that task. I should be doing that task. Because what you're doing is you are then programming your brain to collect evidence to reinforce that belief, right? If you're sitting on the couch watching TV, or if you decide to take the afternoon off, and in doing so, your brain is constantly trying to flood you with this belief, right? You've got this belief, taking the afternoon off is a mistake. You're going to have more tasks to do tomorrow. This is not a productive use of your time. You've got too many things on your to-do list. You will actively look for and recognize evidence that supports those beliefs. So it takes practice to not only give yourself the downtime, give yourself the Netflix break, watch that extra episode, and use that as an opportunity to collect evidence that when I give myself a little longer break, when I have downtime, I am so much more effective and productive with the time I do spend on my business. That is a shift that needs to be made. And so even if 2 people do the same thing in terms of how much downtime they have and to what extent they spend time at their desk, we could have 2 people who have the exact same day unfold. The one who uses that as an opportunity to collect evidence that rest and downtime is productive is going to feel differently at the end of the day and at the start of the next day compared to the person who's actively collecting evidence that this was a mistake, that this is lazy, that this is a poor choice, that this is going to come back and bite you tomorrow. They can do exactly the same thing. They can take the exact same amount of break. They can do the exact same number of tasks, but the only difference between them is what they are using that downtime to collect evidence of. And the way that we do that in the Kickstart and Biz Boost program is through anchors, and we have like a little mindset strategy that we use. But honestly, even just that commitment to collecting evidence of what good decisions we're making can mean you're snowballing momentum towards positive mindset about yourself as the CEO of your business. Or if you don't consciously choose what it is that you're collecting evidence of, you could, over the course of a week, accidentally snowball the belief that you're no good at this and that you don't have enough time and there's too many tasks on your list and downtime is wasted time. So I really loved how many people really got that this time around. So that was lesson number 2. Busy doesn't always automatically mean productive, and rest is productive time, particularly for business owners. Lesson number 3 was flood the zone. And this one came from the day 3 actions around creating content and a little bit of day 2 as well when we were creating strategic assets. And between day 2 and day 3, I actually did a Facebook Live where I was talking about how frustrated I am that so many of the people that I love and whose businesses I follow, and like I really value their opinions, I value their voice, I value seeing their face on my newsfeed, we're starting to contract their presence online. I was seeing a lot more perfectionism about people like almost creating filters about what they're allowed to post about or what level of value needs to be included in their posts in order for it to be worthwhile of sharing on their newsfeed. And a very consistent conversation that popped up on day 2 was around, I don't want to add to the noise. And I totally understand that feeling. I can understand that as being a response. The internet does feel very noisy right now. But my response during the day 2 and 3 workshops and also in my Facebook Live was to say, are you saying that the way to respond to a lot of ableist, sexist, misogynist, racist, like hardcore, like exclusionary content is to just stay quiet? Is that really how we think we're going to contribute positively to people's experiences? And so one of the things I referred to was Project 2025. So this was a project manifesto that was created by some influential lobbying groups and business interests in the United States as part of their process of trying to get Donald Trump elected and what they would then do once he was elected and how they would shut down the media, shut down access to information, and how they would distract the public from seeing all of the sinister things that they were doing to align laws and policies and what the government was doing in the US and basically just distract us. And so in Project 2025, one of the core strategies was literally called Flood the Zone. And what that meant was keeping the news cycle so full of outlandish and outrageous things that Trump had said. And it was like a sleight of hand where the more people are like getting distracted by, oh, he's got this weird thing going on in his hand. Oh, he's said that word wrong. Oh, he's said that they're eating the cats and the dogs. He said this, he said that. The more we get distracted by that, the less we'll notice what else is going on, the less we'll be able to see the bigger picture. It's also part of the reason why the Epstein files are being released in these giant waves of documents, because psychologically the brain does not have the capacity to actually process that information. So in a court of law, where there is a particularly heinous case like this, there are actually protocols that need to be followed as to how much distressing content and in what containers distressing content is presented in a legal case to ensure that the jurors and the judge and all of the parties involved don't experience this psychological overwhelm. And that gatekeeping and that boundary isn't available to us as members of the public. Now, I'm not going to go too far down, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying here is that there is a reason why the internet is very noisy right now. And when it comes to this type of very divisive content, racist content, sexist content. It is such great rage bait. It gets engagement. It's training the algorithms to show us more and more rage bait because that is what we engage with. And so it's not just in the content that we share on the internet, it's also the way that we engage with content on the internet that we actually have a lot more power and a lot more control than we give ourselves credit for. But if we want to reclaim social media as social spaces and spaces to connect, spaces to support each other, and, turn it into a space that does feel inclusive and safe, the number one thing we need to be doing is contributing content that is this oasis online and engaging with that kind of content as much as we can. And we actually do have far more power and influence in this than we think, because the algorithm is responsive to our behaviors. So if, for example, we choose not to engage in rage bait, clickbait, any of that kind of content online, we are training the algorithms that doesn't work for us anymore. And that the way to get engagement, the way to feed us content that we're going to actually enjoy and engage with on the platform, because that's what the platform wants, is to feed us content that is uplifting, feed us content that's helpful, feed us content from people we follow, rather than random content that's suggested, random content that's advertising. We can even train the advertising algorithm to only show us ads that we're interested in, but it takes us flooding the zone. And so the flood the zone was shared as a takeaway by a lot of people, but I wanted to explain that one because it actually comes from both sides. We need to see the noise of the internet and decide we need to compete. We need to flood the zone as well. We don't just let it proliferate. And I think that's why it's about choosing the platform that you want to work on as well. Because for me, I've closed down my X account, Twitter account. I've closed down my Threads account. I've closed down, I'm not engaging on the platforms where I feel like it's all hope is lost for me. Instead, I'm engaging on the platforms where I really see there is hope. There is an opportunity for us to make a difference, and I feel like I can still make a difference in the space that I'm in. And so I've chosen Facebook as my primary platform, and that is what I am focused on. Therefore, when I'm on Facebook, I am very mindful that I am contributing positive content. I'm contributing the kind of content that people want to see. I'm contributing content that people can engage with, and I am doubling my efforts with content rather than halving them. Not because I want to reward Zuckerberg or the algorithm or whatever, but literally because I want to ensure that my audience and the people who want to see content like that have something to see. And then I'm also very mindfully engaging when I'm on social media as well to flood the algorithm with a feedback loop that tells it, I'm not here for the rage bait. I'm not here for the clickbait. And so I'm really being mindful about that. And for a lot of the participants in Kickstart, that was a big takeaway for them as well. And so it just took away a lot of that resistance and perfectionism. I've also been sharing quite prolifically another part of that conversation that really landed for a lot of people, which was that when a 26-year-old guy at the gym has a girl say something to him and he decides that that means all women are problematic because of this, and he forms some random half-baked idea, he doesn't second guess going and sharing that online. He doesn't second guess going and telling that story. He doesn't wait until he's feeling camera ready to take a selfie to go with it, right? We need to shortcut the neural pathway for ourselves as content creators, and especially as business owners online, to be, I have an idea I want to share with my audience, I share it. I have a thought that's not quite fully formed, but I think that it's something I could have a conversation about. I'm going to start the conversation. I have a question I wish I could ask my audience. I'm not going to spend 14 hours trying to meticulously curate that question to be asked in exactly the right way. I'm just going to ask the question. And if I don't get enough answers, I'll ask the question a different way tomorrow. And then if I'm still not sure, I'll ask the question a different way the next day. And I'll ask the question of my list the day after that. And then I'll ask the question of every person that I talk to one-on-one for the next week, right? Where there's information you need, go and get it. If there's something you want to share, go and share it. We need to stop second guessing, and we need to stop censoring ourselves simply because of a predetermined idea around what we need to look like, sound like, or what standard of perfection needs to be accomplished for us to be worthy of having that shared on socials. Because ultimately, it is not the censorship of social media that is going to see these problematic viewpoints win out on the algorithms. It's actually the self-censoring that's going to do it. We won't be silenced. We will self-silence long before the silencing needs to happen. And the more that we are collecting evidence that we are being silenced, that we are having our voices dimmed, that we are being suppressed in the algorithm, the more we will find evidence of that, and it will feel hopeless and we will feel helpless. But I have enough people in my life that I see who still want to make a go of this, who still believe in humanity, who still believe in the good in the world, and who still want to connect with other people who are like-hearted to them, who still want to hold on to hope that we can free ourselves from oligarchy, that we can free ourselves from some of the political and societal structures that ultimately will lead to our demise. There's so much hope core out there, and there is so much optimism out there. And I want us to really do what it takes to tap into that and share it. And I want us to not give up so soon and not give up so easily, because even if in a year from now, social media is completely gone, I don't want you to look back and see that a year ago, you did still have access to people online. You did still have a free opportunity to promote your work and to build an audience and to build a mailing list, but you chose not to because the internet was too noisy. I want you, if and when social media disappears, to be able to look back and say, well, I made hay while the sun shone. During the time where it was available to me to be able to reach people online, to be able to build a community, to be able to build a mailing list, to be able to create momentum, to be able to start collecting people who, were wanting to learn from me, I did what I could in the time that I had. And so I'm sad that it's gone, but I have a seed of something that I can move forward with. And we can still find each other. And we'll find a way, because I know that we will. But I really do believe that at this point in time, we are a little bit on a tipping point. We are a little bit on a precipice. But the thing that is going to completely derail and see this thing slide down the tube is actually the good guys, right? Those of us who really do want to contribute to inclusion. We want to contribute to helping people and changing people's lives for the better. We want to contribute to dismantling patriarchy because it actually doesn't benefit any of the people inside it other than the top 1% earners in the world, the wealth hoarders of the world, right? For those of us who want to dismantle patriarchy, who want to contribute to inclusion in the world, the one thing that is going to see this go off the edge of the cliff way, way faster is for those of us who feel that way to withdraw. That is the thing that is going to see the demise of our media, the demise of social media, the demise of community, connection, what we are able to access online. And I really believe that this is a pivotal point in time. Energetically, fire horse, 1 year in numerology, all of those things, the astrology that I'm reading, I feel like it's all this call to action for us. And you can choose to answer the call and show up imperfectly and show up as the human you are and show up and give us something great to engage with. Give us something, even if it is a picture of your lunch. I would rather see a picture of your lunch than see another 26-year-old red pill dude tell me that women are giving men the ick because they want to have an ambitious career. I would rather see a picture of your dog. I would rather hear you share your thoughts about your modality. I would rather hear you share something helpful. I would rather see what you ate for lunch today. I really would. That is what social media was built on. And that is what social media can be again. It can be an opportunity for us to connect human to human, heart to heart, and lift each other up. But we can't do it alone. We can't rely on anyone else to do it for us. We need to do it together. And when you hear me say flood the zone, that is what I'm talking about. It's not just share as much content as possible. I absolutely think share as much content as possible, at least getting something out every second day. Give us something to engage with, right? Don't withdraw, show up and expand. But it's also then meticulously pay attention to the way that you engage with social media. The brain dead way that we scroll and get sucked into rage bait and clickbait and misinformation and AI generated content is part of the reason why we're continuously training the algorithms to feed us more of that. And so I have actually been spending more time on social media on my computer these days than actually on my phone, because I find when I'm sitting at my desk at my computer, I'm more conscious and I'm more focused on what it is that I'm doing. And I can be a little more clear on what I'm flooding the zone with, what I'm training the algorithm, and also making sure I'm getting my content out there. So that one is flood the zone. Number 4, the simplest tasks and actions aren't the nice to have that you make them. And this was a really interesting one, right? So some people when I was talking about prioritizing what's actually going to contribute to growth and results, were seeing their big fancy funnel building project as most critical to generating results. And as a result of that, they weren't following up with people who'd said a month ago, I'm going to work with you next year. Or they had people who were commenting on their posts on social media and they weren't replying to those people because they were so busy rebuilding their website. And it's like, even though the website rebuild is a big project, it actually doesn't mean it's the mission critical and the replying to people's comments is nice to have. Oh, that's a nice to do if I have time. The following up with people who you had a conversation with 3 months ago and they said, oh, I'm not quite ready to do it just yet, but maybe next year, right? You're seeing that as a nice to do. Oh, I'll get to that. But the most important thing for me to do is build that new lead magnet and the follow-up email sequence. And for a lot of people, the realization was, wow, I am doing a lot of neglecting small, teeny, tiny tasks that make a huge difference for the sake of big, shiny projects that actually won't make as big of a difference. And so getting really clear on what is actually baseline, business as usual, core business versus what is nice to have can mean that a lot of that default prioritization is turned on its head. There are a lot of people in Kickstart who decided to delay a new project to get their business as usual lead generation, follow-ups, and one-to-one nurture strategies nailed, and they saw money come in the door super quickly. And they were able to collect evidence that actually it doesn't take a giant project to generate a big shift and a change and a growth in results. They were thinking that they needed to grow their mailing list by thousands of people this year, when we went and collected evidence that they have hot leads on their existing mailing list that they have neglected to nurture, that they have neglected to invite. And if you can focus on getting those things nailed, you're actually far more likely to generate the income results that you're looking for. And it was such a huge revelation, and to be able to see it in real time. And what was so beautiful about it happening in Kickstart was that one person would share what happened for them and that they had done that. And so it gave almost like an extra nudge to someone else. And then it gave an extra nudge to someone else. And so what we saw was this almost like snowball ripple effect amongst the group, where more and more people were going, well, if that person sent 6 follow-up emails and made 3 sales, and I'm saying I've got 12 emails to send, but I'm going to go and focus on my funnels first, maybe I should give this a go, right? It was like just this little tiny, yeah, but what if I could actually find 6 people to follow up with? What if I could find 5 people to nurture today? What if I could? What if there were 4 people in my mailing list already who wanted to work with me? And here I am saying, well, there's only 180 people on my mailing list, so it's not worthwhile me sending an email to them. I need to go and get another 180 people on my mailing list before I nurture the people I already have. And so we just saw this really become a practical shift in the way people prioritize tasks in their business, and also the weightiness and the importance that they allocated to some of those tasks, because those little tasks that would make such a big difference, those little nudges, those little connections, those little follow-ups were being delayed or dismissed as not as important because the big shiny project looked more important, felt more important, felt like it had more potential. And then number 5 lesson from Kickstart 2026 was that giving equal time and attention to each stage of the client attraction process was far better than getting tied up in that reach or conversion heavy focus. So some people realized that they were all about reach. They were all about audience growth and social media content. Others realized that if their actions didn't result in a sale straight away, they were dismissing those actions as being unworthy. And so they were just putting a lot of pressure on conversion. And what we were seeing was that actually, if you can balance out time and attention to reach, nurture, invite, convert, reach, nurture, invite, convert, you're far more likely to have people progress through that process than if you just decide, if I can get my offer in front of 10,000 people, I'll make sales. Because for most people, the problem wasn't the size of their audience. It was the level of connection they had with their audience. It was a lack of proactive lead generation with their audience. That was meaning the audience they had wasn't resulting in the sales that they needed. So rather than making it all about needing to reach more people or all about needing to make more sales, if we made it about more lead generation, more one-to-one relationship nurture, they were seeing exactly how that fast-tracked the results that they were looking for in terms of sales. That was the answer to kind of uncorking this problem that they felt like they were just creating a lot of free content and a lot of stuff to try and grow their audience. And then they were doing a lot of pitching offers and a lot of making new products and a lot of trying to strategize what is the next thing that people are going to buy from me. And actually, they didn't need to do either of those things so much. We just needed to bring balance back to their client attraction process. And that's not just through the lens of, for example, content and making sure some of your content's focused on reach, some on nurture, some on invite, some on convert. The thing that I loved, and this is why I think it's such a co-creation, is people were recognizing where they were doing that in other spaces as well. So it wasn't just having a balance of the different stages of the client attraction process in their content. It was also having a balance of the different stages in their strategy and the projects that they took on. It was also having a balance in the time that they invested. They were spending 6 hours a day on reach, 30 minutes on convert, and nothing on nurture and invite. So bringing it back to time balance, bringing it back to task balance. So even just looking through all of the different components of your business and seeing what is this focused on in my client attraction process, and where is the balance? What percentage is being spent on each of these stages? Am I neglecting some of the stages of the client attraction process? So that was number 5, giving equal time and attention to each stage of the client attraction process. So they were the 5 biggest lessons from Kickstart 2026. And as I said, they're not necessarily my lessons. They weren't things that I directly said for all of them. Some of them I directly said and then landed in a slightly different way. Some of them it came back and it was shared in a way that I was like, wow, that's so powerful that it got extrapolated to that point. And the other thing I just want to share as well, and I think we'll call this one a bonus one. It hasn't necessarily been said out loud, but a lot of the people who did Kickstart also work with me in other programs. So they're in the planning system, or they're in the takeoff program, or we do VIP one-on-one sessions together. And one of the conversations that's also come about and has been a reflection in the months since Kickstart is people really started to feel the difference of spending a week in a calm and almost like nervous system friendly space. And what I mean by that is like when you're in a group of people and all of us are focused on collecting positive evidence to reinforce what we want, stepping into that powerful CEO energy, taking action that is strategic and feels aligned, like being surrounded by people who are, they're all working in this specific way. It makes such a difference to that sense of calm, regulation, like not being almost like triggered by negative experiences or forgetting to do something. Sometimes it can be really jolting to your nervous system when you realize you forgot to email someone. It can be really jolting to your nervous system when you are feeling frustrated that you haven't finished your newsletter for the week, whatever it is, right? Like, oh, I forgot to do that, or I still haven't done that, and I thought I was going to get it done today, right? So that can be really dysregulating. And what I find is the more I spend time with others who, for them, like we're all collecting evidence. I don't know what the other term is for it, but we're all collecting evidence that everything's going to be okay, that we are smart, capable people, that we've got this. And so just that reflection back a few months later to say, wow, like since that week, whenever I realize I've forgotten to do something or I haven't followed up with someone, instead of beating myself up about it, panicking, having a freak out, collecting evidence that it means that I'm just not good at this, I can instead go, oh, that's so funny. It would be so funny to share that with the Kickstart group. And also stop making it about yourself and instead look for, where did the system fall over? What was the structure I needed to ensure that that didn't happen? And so it's almost like our brains can function far more effectively when we get out of everything's behind, I suck at this, I'm constantly in panic mode. And sometimes it takes a week in a really beautiful space where we're all choosing to be kind to ourselves, where we're really super kind and encouraging to each other, to see the contrast between what it was like before and what it was like during. And I even had a VIP client and she said, Tash, if you ever offer something where I can tap into that on a very regular basis, please, I am in. I ended up sending her to someone else who offers something that's more ongoing. That was appropriate for what she needs. I do have some spaces like that, like the accelerator and the takeoff program. But when we talked it out, I ended up sending her off to go and work with someone else. But they're like, if I could be tapped in like that every single week, like it's almost like now I realize how mean I was being to myself. And I also realize how much I catastrophized every missed email, every forgotten task, every little typo, every post that I missed getting out on social media. Everything that I did wrong, I was just programmed to collect that as evidence that I wasn't good at business, that I wasn't cut out for this. And now I can see that the only thing that has changed is the way I think about myself and the way that I feel about myself. And that literally just changed because of that week. And the switch has flipped. And now I'm not collecting evidence there's something wrong with me. Instead, I'm just looking for a way to ensure that this doesn't happen again, and not because I won't make that mistake again, because it wasn't a mistake, it was a system error. The system did not nudge me to do that thing when I needed to do it, so I'm going to fix the system. And gosh, does that make a difference to how you feel and that sense of regulation in your nervous system as well. Oh, this has been such a juicy episode. I hope that you found it helpful. And of course, because this is a Tashmas episode, I do have a lovely gift for you today. And that is to invite you to join us in BizBoost 2026, which is happening in the final week of May, the 25th to the 29th of May. And for the first 22 people to come and follow the instructions, you will be able to get $44 off your BizBoost enrollment, because I'm turning 44, so I'm doing a $44 discount. So all you need to do is come to the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/513, and there will be a link and instructions there on how you can join us for BizBoost 2026 and get $44 off your enrollment. I'll see you for our next day of Tashmas tomorrow. And until then, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.